Picture this. You're sprinting down a ruined street past a crater carved by a bomb. Bullets crack past your ears, every corner could be the end. You rush into a shattered building, climb to the second floor, and peek through the hole in a wall. Across the street, a flash, a rifle shot. You drop one soldier, but you know there's more. You shoulder an RPG, fire, and watch the building crumble into the dust. For a moment, it feels like victory. Then, impact. A shot in the back. Darkness closing in. You call for a medic, and just when you're ready to let go, a squad mate dives into a crater, drags you into cover, and revives you. Breath floods back. Another chance. Weapon in hand, you push to defend the position. A nearby building bears another group of enemies. It has to go. Your savior faces two enemies. You suppress them. A friendly tank rolls in, but then that same squad mate who saved you falls to the stray bullet. You don't think. You dive through the falling rubble, drag him up, and keep fighting. Victory is in sight. 12 tickets left. The line has to hold. What you just witnessed is but a 3 minutes of gameplay from one of the countless matches that I had during these past beta weekends. And that's Battlefield at its best. The chaos, the teamwork, the feeling of pulling through when everything seems lost. Few shooters truly deliver that level of spectacle. Collapsing buildings, tanks rolling through the smoke, the rush of being saved at the last second. It's what kept Battlefield going for this long. And it's the magic players hope for every time a new Battlefield arrives. Yet, this is not a perfect slice. For every breathtaking moment, there are flaws that drag the experience down. Balance issues, bugs that break the immersion, design choices that frustrate instead of being exciting. Battlefield is a game of incredible highs and painful lows, and this latest entry is no exception. The first thing that strikes you isn't the gunplay or even the scale, it's the presentation. DICE is certainly not a stranger to crafting beautiful gritty image of a war-torn landscape paired with an audio that elevates every moment. Guns roar with their own distinct voices, explosions echo across the valleys, you catch the creak of debris shifting, the whistle of rounds snapping past, and a subtle hum of distant battle. Here, have a listen. Then come the maps themselves, at least the 4 that we had access to during the beta. They managed to capture the essence of Battlefield, that blend of chaotic firefights and cinematic clashes where contested zones draw the fight in and objectives constantly shift the flow. And although they are not as enormous as something like maps from Battlefield 3's famous Armored Kill DLC, they're still tightly packed with points of contention. There is breathing room between the objectives, especially on Liberation Peak on Conquest, but not so much that you feel like you're running a marathon just to get into the fight. Empire State, the New York map, was the weakest in my opinion. Too many angles to cover without much meaningful protection, and too tightly packed areas to assault. There's very little buffer between spawns and the closest objectives, which turns the whole map into a stronger team meat grinder, so to say, leaving defenders and attackers alike little room to recover and regroup. Weapons on the beta generally felt satisfying, with a strong foundation for balance and variety. Some rifles kick with power, others feel smoother but balance that with different trade-offs. Downing an enemy feels solid and reliable, a result of control and handling rather than a chance alone. That said, not every gun was on equal footing. The M4A1 and M417 carbines alongside the assault rifles like G36 clearly dominated the battlefield. By comparison, the AK-203, despite its accuracy, didn't hit as hard and ultimately wasn't my favorite choice due to its weaker stat line. Even the soft point ammo, which supposedly increases the headshot multiplier, didn't feel like it added too much power to the AK in practice. The E210 sniper rifle was the only sniper rifle available in the beta, but it immediately left a strong impression. It felt fantastic to fire with a crunchy, weighty sound every time you pulled the trigger. Easily one of the standout weapon experiences in the test. SMGs also had their place. While mostly overshadowed by carbines and raw versatility, they were still fun to use, especially the starter SGX, the game's take on MPX, which was surprisingly reliable in close quarters, with a decent amount of damage right out of the gate and easy to control recoil pattern alongside. Let's not, however, throw MP7 completely out of the window either. The legendary gaming laser SMG stood its ground well, even with the lower damage profile, compensating for the lack of damage per bullet with almost non-existent recoil at the close to even medium distances. And how can we forget the notorious shotgun? It had its moments of fun, though the balance issues deserve their own discussion later. On the LMG front, there were two options: the L110, perfect for hunkering down and defending with its generous 100-round magazine by default, and the KTS-100, a slower firing but highly accurate option that shined in the mid to long range engagements. The KTS-100 in particular became a reliable go-to when I felt like running LMG on medic. Otherwise, carbines were a far superior choice for an all-class option. Even the DMRs felt like they had more place in a Battlefield 6 compared to something like BF 2042. The M39 leaned into a rapid fire and a solid mid-range performance, carving out a distinct role as a versatile option in that space. The SVK, on the other hand, hit hard, and using it to drop distant targets felt especially satisfying. Pairing it with a suppressor added a layer of stealth that made every shot land with even more impact. Vehicles bring that same sense of impact. Ground armor feels like beast, powerful and dangerous to underestimate. Tanks are threat you can't generally ignore, yet they never feel like an unstoppable gods. Coordination, positioning and counterplay still matters. I haven't spent as much time in helicopters and jets to speak deeply on their balance, but their impact in matches was noticeable, weaving into the combined arms flow in a way that felt like almost a classic battlefield. And then there is destruction. Buildings crumble, cover disappears, and Battlefield reshapes itself mid-match. And it's not just for the spectacle, it really changes how you play. The house you were hiding in, gone. That wall you used as a cover, reduced to rubble. The system forces players to adapt. And this brings me to my next point. A fortification system like one from Battlefield 5 would fit, I think, perfectly into the Battlefield 6 setting. When so much of the environment can be leveled, the ability to rebuild cover, lay down defenses or patch together a fallback would add a bit more tactical depth on the defending side. Perhaps it's something that developers are considering for future DLC, who knows. Even squad play had its shining moments. While some of the systems still need work, which I'll get into later, the basics are there. The foundation of Battlefield Match still leans on working with your squad, holding a point, pushing an objective, and creating those organic stories that only Battlefield seems to be capable of delivering. It's messy and it's chaotic, but it's that kind of chaos that makes you grin when you just manage to survive it. For all its strong impressions, Battlefield 6 still has cracks showing beneath the surface, places where polish, balance and design could elevate the experience dramatically. Weapon balance is the first standout issue. I did mention the three main guns that dominated the field. Now let's get back to our main standout culprit, the AK-203. In the beta, easily one of the most accurate rifles available, but its damage output lagged noticeably behind other carbines. Out of 3 carbines on offer, it felt underpowered, and even with a soft point ammo designed to boost headshot multipliers, the weapon didn't feel meaningfully stronger in live combat. And then, the shotgun, which sits on the opposite extreme. At close range, the weapon is really devastating, often melting players instantly, just as it should, yet at times it behaves inconsistently. You can line up a hipfire shot where reticle covers an entire enemy body, only for pellets to miss like it's a Pulp Fiction scene. To balance this, the shotgun shouldn't necessarily lose its raw stopping power, but spread should scale harder with the distance. Within 10 meters perhaps, a shot full of box shot should absolutely end you. Beyond that, the damage and pellet grouping should fall off steeply, a way to equalize the fight without neutering its intended role. Movement and traversal still need some polish. Battlefield has always been about freedom of positioning, sliding into cover, vaulting obstacles, sprinting to shift lanes. Most of the time it works well, but sometimes the flow breaks. animations can on occasion feel a little bit clunky, a little bit delayed, right when you just need them to be sharp. The good news that is that developers have already responded. They've toned down the momentum you carry from sliding into jumps, added penalties for repeated jumping, and made firing while jumping or sliding less accurate. Then there is matter of visibility and information. Scope glint, for example, feels far too punishing in my opinion. Even the cautious snipers are lit up the moment they aim, with a wide bright glare that broadcasts their entire position. I feel like scopes up to the 4 times shouldn't glint at all, allowing for a proper stealth marksman role. For higher magnifications, attachments like anti-glint coating could go further. Instead of cheap minor angle reduction of the glint, make it a heavier investment, say 20 points, and it would remove the glint entirely. This would create a real choice to take between the straight pull bolt, for example, for a faster follow-up shots, or commit to a stealth option with a slower, more methodical play at distance. That way, stealth sniping becomes a definite style, while powerful optics stay balanced and fair. The UI too needs refinement, both in combat and in menus. Reticle customization is sadly missing. Being able to tweak color, size or shape is the difference between tracking targets clearly or losing them in a cluttered environments. Outside of the matches, the menus lean too much into a Windows 8 tile style. A simpler, old-school menus option would be faster, clearer, and more in line with what Battlefield players actually need. Time to death remains inconsistent. Sometimes you drop instantly, while other times enemies seem to soak half of the magazine. Fortunately, the developers have already acknowledged this issue and said they're investigating it, which is good to hear. Matchmaking also showed its limits. Across multiple sessions, I found myself playing defense on breakthrough 4 out of 5 matches. The mode itself for me thrives on variety, yet the system behind matchmaking often locked players into the same role for long stretches. The developers, fortunately, acknowledged the matchmaking challenges during the beta and promised improvements, but specifically ensuring a balance between offense and defense should be a priority. A smarter rotation that alternates roles more consistently would keep the experience fresh and ensure everyone sees both sides of the fight. And last but not least, I feel like repeating myself a little. Battlefield 6 feels like it's missing 2 mechanics that could elevate its already strong destruction system: fortifications and squad rewards. Without fortifications, maps often devolve into barren landscapes where cover has been stripped away, but not replaced. A simple system for sandbags or makeshift defenses would restore flow while respecting the chaos of destruction. Squad rewards too deserve to return. In past games, strong squad play built towards powerful abilities like V1 Rocket from Battlefield 5, giving a teamwork a tangible payoff. Reintroducing something like this would recenter Battlefield on its best trait, making cooperation not just useful, but essential. In the end, I want to say that I love Battlefield. It's my favorite FPS game, period. And what I played in this beta shows me that DICE is on the right track. Honestly, I struggle to believe that it's still over 50 days until release from the point of this recording. It's gonna be a hard wait. I want to play it, and I want to play it now, flaws and all. I hope you found this review useful. If you did, consider subscribing for more. And with that, I'll see you back in the field. Remy out.